Good evening. This is the December 5th, 2019 meeting of the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission, meeting in Town Council Chambers. It is now 7:04 p.m. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, commissioners, please introduce yourself, starting on my right.
Ronald Schneider, I'm an alternate.
Dominic Benicia, I'm an alternate.
Robert Westland, alternate. Bruno Maini, commissioner.
William Porter, chairman.
Ryan Condon, Commissioner.
Michael Riley, Vice Chairman.
Will Augusta, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Rick Schultz, Town Planner.
Scott Schatzline, Town Engineer.
Sarah Schreiber, Recording Secretary.
Thank you. Item number 3, organizational and administrative matters. First, congratulations to all the people who have been recently elected or re-elected. And I'd like to welcome our 2 new alternate members, Ron Schneider and Dominic Benicia. Welcome to the commission. I'd also like to thank Commissioners Ken Wilk and Paul Lisi, who completed their terms at our last meeting. Thank them for their service to the town and to the commission. And I got a call from Paul Lisi this afternoon, and he said to express his thanks to the commission members and staff. He had a very positive opportunity here and experience, and said to thank you. Okay, moving on. Our annual meeting calendar. Will, you want to take that?
You should have a draft meeting calendar for 2020. The meetings outlined are, as usual, the first and third Thursdays of the month, with the exception of October, where the second meeting would be bumped to the third Thursday. I think that's the only deviation.
4th Thursday, isn't it?
The fourth Thursday, yeah, because we have an extra week in that one.
Right.
And that's usually when Rick and I are at a conference. Yeah, I got it.
I move to accept 2020 regular meeting schedule as drafted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
What date was changed? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you well.
On October, instead of the third Thursday, it would be the fourth Thursday of the month, which would be October 22nd.
It's already,
It's already
these are the
changed.
correct dates. It's already been changed.
Oh.
Normally, we're the 1st and the 3rd. October's going to be the 1st and the 4th.
Love it,
Got it?
love it.
Any further discussion?
No, sir.
We'll call the roll, starting with
Bill,
Rob.
do you want to seat, you can seat Robert? We're down one commissioner,
Oh, that's right.
so you can seat Robert.
You see the next one?
Yeah.
All right, Robert, you're seated tonight. All right, now we'll call the roll, starting with Rob.
Yes or no, sir?
Westland, yes.
Maini, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay, moving on. Item number 4, general public participation. Is there anyone here who would like to address the commission on an issue that's not related to an open application or public hearing? Seeing none. Item number 5, general appointments, we have none. Public hearings. Okay, instructions for public hearings. There are 2 sets of microphones for both public address and recording of the proceedings. Due to the need for recording, it is important to stand at a microphone at all times and speak into it loudly and clearly in order that everyone in the room can hear and to capture what is being said. Individuals speaking from the seats will not be heard and will not be recognized to speak. Order of the hearing of an application. Points of order and responses will be entertained. Exhibits will be read for the record. Applicant and/or representatives will present the application and will answer commission questions. The floor will be open to those in favor. The floor will be open to those opposed. The floor will be open to general questions or comments. The floor will be open to the applicant, who may take the opportunity for closing remarks or rebuttal. after which discussion will close. The applicant or his representatives are the final speakers. No comment shall be accepted from anyone unless recognized by the chair. All questions and comments shall be addressed to the chair, who will determine if an answer shall be provided and by whom. There shall be absolutely no discussion between speakers and audience. Commission has no intention to limit the right of any person to speak, but asks that speakers try not to be repetitive. Please try to present new information. If something has been said before, the commission would invite you to indicate your agreement with previous speakers. At no time shall there be displays of emotion such as applause, cheering, shouting, or similar noise. This is critical as this hearing is being recorded. If this happens, you will be cautioned. A vote or demonstration by a show of hands, standing by the audience, or similar action will not be recognized. All parties are requested not to talk between themselves while the hearing is in progress. If you feel a need to talk, please step out into the lobby. All speakers, when recognized, must advance to the microphone to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. The chairman reserves the right to cut off discussion if it is not relevant to the application or is presented in an inappropriate manner. This is a legal proceeding, much the same as what would occur in a courtroom setting. We request that all parties observe the proper decorum that would be observed in that setting. Please turn off all cell phones or similar devices. If you have a need to use these devices, please leave the room and use them outside. Okay, first up, we have SCP 2018-03, file number 1598A, 205 Monroe Turnpike, LOR District, permit approval amendment modification application to alter previously approved development, SCP 2018-03, to facilitate a Panera Bread restaurant with revision to the site plan layout of the restaurant building, its size, floor plan, and elevations, as well as changes to associated access, parking, and loading, and addition of a drive-through window, which drive-through is subject to an additional SCP 205 Monroe Turnpike LLC owner applicant, and this is reconvened from our October 24th, 2019 meeting. Will, what do we have for exhibits?
Do you want me to read those, or there is a letter postponing this? Want me to enter those in and then read that, or do you want to just postpone to the?
I got that letter. I thought it was just giving us time. I didn't think they were
It's
postponing
giving us
the
time to
hearing.
it's giving us time to December 19th.
So they're not presenting tonight.
That's my understanding. That's correct?
That's good.
Good evening. My name is Russell Sear from Sully Engineering. Yes, that's true. We are asking to continue this until next hearing on the 19th.
Okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were just giving us the mandatory
The reason is that...
extension because we're beyond the timeline.
No, the reason is that we're trying to define the building architecture through the Architecture Review Board. We haven't done that yet, so we
Okay,
asked.
great. Then this will be continued to December 19th.
Okay.
Item number 7, SCP 2019-10, file number 1618A, 17 Enterprise Drive, I-2 District, special exception permit site development plan application for Phase 2 construction of a proposed 28,440 square foot warehouse with 5,950 square foot office mezzanine, as well as associated site improvements, parking, loading, landscaping, utility lighting, and other related supporting infrastructures. J&S Industries LLC, owner applicant, and this hearing is reconvened from our October 24th, 2019 meeting. All right, Will, what do we have for that?
Exhibit 14, response to P&Z comments. Exhibit 15, sanitarium report. Exhibit 16, revised plan set. Exhibit 17, revised AirT and granting time extension by the applicant. Exhibit 19, response to comments. Exhibit 20, hydrograph table. Exhibit 21, hydrograph summary report. Exhibit 22, revised plan set. Exhibit 23, updated ART engineering comments. Exhibit 24, Inland Wetlands Commission approval and report. Exhibit 25, updated P&Z ART comments. And Exhibit 26, ART Health Department comments, that as well.
Okay, for the applicant?
Good evening.
That's up.
For the record, my name is Russell Sear. I'm a professional engineer with Sully Engineering, representing the applicant.
Mr. Sear, I just want to interject something here. We have a new revised site plan that was submitted on December 2nd. None of the commissioners have seen this site plan until they got their copy here this evening. So I don't know, I've had this discussion with Mr. Solly numerous times in the past.
Right.
How are we supposed to
Understood.
intelligently review your application and your proposal when we have not even seen the plans yet?
Understood.
So you can proceed, but I'm telling you right now that we're not going to close this hearing tonight.
I didn't
because
expect to.
We haven't even looked at this.
I understand. So we were last here on October 24th, and just some new members here, I'm going to give a brief recap of what the project's all about. I'd like to do that. So this is a 12.3 acre site, and the proposal is to build a 28,440 square foot warehouse. The parcel is located on Enterprise Drive, it's an industrial park in the north end of town. This is Enterprise Drive, Cambridge, this is Pepper Street over here. This is an existing building that was built in 2006, 2007. At that time, there was part of that approval was for a phase 2 building to be located here, which is what we're applying for now. This was the approved plan back, sorry, this is the phase 1 site plan. What happened was that in 2006, the applicant never acquired a CO. So we went through this past year, past 6 months, tying up some loose ends that were left over from the original approval so that they can get a zoning permit and get a CO. We just completed that process, and the paperwork for the CO is going through town departments. This was the approved plan from 2006. This is the original, the phase 1 building, and this is the phase 2 building shown back here. The parcel's 12.3 acres, and of that 5.1 are wetlands in this area here. There's a conservation easement across the back. This is our site survey. This is our proposed site plan. So it's a 28,440 square foot warehouse building. We're proposing 35 new parking spaces along the front and along the side. There's 2 truck loading bays, excuse me, in the front, depressed loading bays with a 4-foot lift at the end. It's proposed detention basin in this area with a retaining wall across the parking lot. Utilities will be stubbed in during phase 1. They'll be tied in to the side of the building. There's a proposed outdoor storage area. The owner's allowed 20% of the square footage of outdoor storage. He's allowed 6,000 square feet, and we're proposing 5,738 square feet. There's a dumpster for both buildings proposed in this area here. So, since our original submission, at the time we submitted initially, we were in wetland. We had a simultaneous wetland application, which we received subsequent approval on November 13th. And going through that approval, there's a number of different things that needed to change. Fairly minor things that were changed as a result of the wetland permit. So since the original submission, initially this outdoor storage area was not shown in the original submission. It's been added. We had initially shown 7 parking spaces along the edge of this parking here. We've changed that to 8 because we made an error in showing the parking required for the phase 1 building, so we needed 1 more parking space, so we added it here. We added a location for proposed monument sign in the front. We reversed the configuration of the accessible parking spaces in front of the building so that the space was not adjacent to a loading space. This is a loading dock, so it ramps down and it's 4 feet below the first floor for a semi-truck. These are surface loading spaces with a roll-up door on the side for like a van that can back into that and unload directly to the first floor. But we reversed the configuration of this accessible parking so that the parking space wasn't directly adjacent to the loading. And we missed a couple of doors, actually. We only showed one door initially in the front. There's actually, we showed these 2 doors. There's actually another door here and doors on the side that were added. So we slightly revised the grading in the front to accommodate the access to those doors. Another thing that's changed as a result of the wetland permit was the location of the outlet piping for the detention basin. Initially came out over here. It was too close to the edge of the wetland. We moved it over this place. We could put a level spreader in. We rerouted the utility plan. We initially showed the utilities are all stubbed up to this point, just off the existing pavement. We initially showed them going into the front of the building, not the mechanical room's going to be inside, so we changed the configuration of that so it enters the side. We added an electric transformer adjacent to the building. We initially thought it was going to go over the side where the existing one is for phase 1 building. It needs to go in this area closer to the building. In the landscape plan, we added screening planting along the conservation easement. We added a couple of trees in the parking area. We added some trees around the detention basin.
Excuse me, Russ,
Go ahead.
has this plan been submitted?
Say it again.
Has that plan on the wall been submitted?
Is it what?
Has that plan that you have up on the wall been submitted?
No.
Okay.
No.
When do you intend to submit?
This week, prior to, in enough time to be reviewed by staff before the 9th.
So that would have to be by 3 p.m. next Tuesday.
We'll do that.
And Tuesday, we will not look at for the next
Understood.
meeting.
Understood. You'll have it.
Okay.
So we have some additional planting that wetland required, and that was asked for by planning staff. Additionally, the wetland, we ended up, we received approval to fill an existing wetland pocket. It was a man-made wetland in here. To make up for that, we added some mitigation planting in the wetlands here and along the edge of the wetland here. Here's some mitigation, removal of invasive plants in this existing sediment basin. So this is a completely new additional plan from what was originally submitted. And then some minor modifications to the detention basin. We had a trash rack, we had the monument detail. Lighting is exactly the same. This is a rendering of the building. So here's the parking in the front. This is the roll-up door for the surface loading. loading, for the tractor trailers to back into the local formal loading dock in the back. Doors at the front. These are the floor plans. Floor plans are unchanged since the original submission. And the monument sign to go in the front is shown, details shown. So this is all in the submission that we're going to supply before 3 o'clock on Tuesday.
So we currently do not have a floor plan. Could you go back to the floor plan, please? Or the
Yeah,
elevation?
the floor plan was part of the original submission.
The elevations, I mean.
Oh, the elevation.
You said you added some doors.
These,
So that's the east elevation.
so
of
this
the
is
front.
looking at the front, okay?
Right, on the side elevations, you have
There's 3
two
doors.
two pass
and on the
doors there.
side, this is the side where the parking lot is, okay? And this is the other side, and this is the back.
Okay. But you have no walk from that door on the...
This door,
I guess it's the north, the north
this
side of
door?
the building.
oh yeah, we're showing a concrete pad. It's just an emergency access, just for egress, emergency egress. Not to be used ordinarily.
Well, during the original, or the preliminary presentation that we were giving, it was shown that this building was going to be cut in half.
That's correct. It's
So-
designed so that it can be 2 tenants.
So that's going to be a secondary means of
Well,
egress from
there's
that
three
portion
doors
of
in
the
the
building.
front. There's 3 doors in the front.
Right, but what's your travel distance? I think you should consider a sidewalk from that side door out to the paved area.
Okay. We could.
You should.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's required by code, but we can provide that.
I'm not so sure about that, but that's for the building department.
So with that, I will open it up to questions.
All right, commissioners, seeing as the plan we have before us, no one's even looked at, and they're going to be submitting new information, feel free to ask any questions now, but we will be asking questions again at our next meeting based on the revised and resubmitted drawings. So we'll start with you, Ron. Dominic?
I have no question.
So approximately, what is the height of the screen planting along the trail?
I don't think we got that.
You put it in the new.
Let's see, just to look at my hard copy here. So those trees are giant green arborvitae with a height of 10 to 12 feet. And there's 8 of them.
And nothing's changed, the original plan was to tie into the existing septic system, that's still the plan going
That's
forward?
correct. I neglected to mention that. So the original plan, the plan still states that the So the original septic system for the existing building is located right here. And that was sized per health code for 0.1 gallons per day per square foot. So 3,000, size for a 3,000 gallon a day flow. There's 2 toilets in that whole building. It's got almost no flow. So it's tremendously oversized. Given that, it was actually suggested to us by Rich Jackson, the sanitarian. We had done some septic, we intended to put another system down in this area here. We did septic testing, soil testing, and the soils were terrible. And it was actually suggested to us by the sanitarian to tie into that system because it's got so much capacity. It's called the central system, and it's permitted by the state health department. So we're in the process of going through that with the state.
And it's a gravity-fed system at this
It's
point?
pumped.
It's pumped.
So there'll be there's a septic tank, comes out, flows to a septic tank, to a pump station, and then there's a force main runs up through here, connects into the leaching field.
That's all I have.
Just to follow up on it, there is a letter from the current town sanitarian with this regard, which is in your exhibits. And he does acknowledge the need, that it is a central system needing Connecticut Health Department approval. He has also met with a state person, and they actually weren't aware of this system until I kind of told it to them. The sanitarian's new, so obviously he's just catching up on the
Yeah,
files.
it's brand new.
And, but there is a memo that tells you what they expect, so there is some work that needs to be done. And as a commission, part of the special exception is you should be confident that there is a viable septic system.
Yeah. We've been trying to, we don't know exactly what's there because we have some as-bills, but we don't have, the town doesn't have any record drawings for that system that was approved. So my next step is to contact the state because that was reviewed by the state because it was over 2,000 gallons a day, so maybe they have it. So I'm having trouble getting the permitted plans to see exactly what's there. So we're in the
Nobody has an
process.
as-built?
What's that?
Nobody has an as-built?
Nobody in town has them. I'm shocked. A system that size, 12 years ago. Well, the state must have them. They permitted it.
Well, seeing as they didn't have a CO,
Yeah.
it's probably just one of those things that never got submitted.
I don't know. They must have got a certificate of discharge from the health department, I think.
I was a health district at the time. Wasn't specific to the town.
It was the Trumbull Monroe Health District.
Say it again?
It was a health district,
Oh, it was?
there was, yes, but they got disbanded, and now we're back to a town health.
It was Trumbull and Monroe at that time?
It was Trumbull Monroe Health District.
Oh, maybe Trumbull would have something.
Well, they divided up the records, but
Yeah.
anyone knows what happened.
Okay,
when they did
I'll
that.
check with them, maybe they have, in addition to the state.
How many bathrooms do you have in the other building that you're
How
proposing?
many bathrooms in the new one? It's 2, if I'm not mistaken. There's one here and there's one here. It's men's and women's, so there's, 4.
4.
Yeah.
Is that the same as the other building?
So, yeah, pretty much.
So there's 4 in the other building, not 2.
Okay, 4.
Just asking.
I know the flows. I'm not sure how many.
I'm sure it flows well.
It's probably 2, yeah. But it's got like a couple hundred gallons a day as opposed to 3,000 gallons a day.
Right. Okay. I'll hold my questions until I.
Back to the buffer trees.
Yeah.
At the back along the trails. You're gonna screen, are you confident that you're not gonna be able to see the building from the rails, or rail to trail?
Well, the building's taller than the trees. You're going to see the top of the
Well,
building.
the top of it, yeah. Well, I'm concerned, obviously, people seeing it, but also you got a big, no windows, white canvas there, abutting people walking up through the woods. I just would hate for that to become, graffiti or something like that on the side of it.
Well, I mean, there's going to be graffiti. I can't speak to that.
Well, I mean, if it's very visible from the rail to
Well, the
trail.
rail trail's down here, right? There's a 50-foot conservation easement, which is pretty heavily wooded.
Okay.
So they gotta cross through the conservation easement up a hill.
All right, and you're putting in screening
We're putting in
trees
the
and it's gonna be a
screening
solid
along the-
row?
You're not
Right.
gonna be able to hide that
Right on
building.
the edge.
No.
You can see.
No, but
the
you're not gonna be able to hide it, but those
original.
arborvitae's also grow over the course of time as well. Right? I mean, I don't think they're gonna go 40
Not
feet.
how good they're gonna do back behind the building next to trees, but with no sun.
I'm gonna put solar panels on those trees to help them grow.
Not sure that's how it works, but good idea.
All right, that's my only question for now.
Mike, I asked for a copy of the conservation easement.
Copy of the conservation easement?
Yeah, at the, last.
It's been
meeting.
filed on the land records, along with a map. I don't have it on me.
Oh,
We
could
can
you
supply
make
you
one
with that.
available?
Excuse me?
Could you make one available to us?
Sure.
For the next meeting?
Make it part of your submission,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mike?
No, that's it.
Staff have anything for right now?
There's a condition in the wetlands approval, which I think with regards to your next submission, you should take a look at how you're going to address, because it potentially could, my understanding, it may alter your grading. One of the conditions with regard to the outdoor storage area, they required that it be pitched so that it drains towards the site development and away from the wetlands area. And my understanding, we're talking with the wetlands coordinator, that someone from your office said that that's gonna require,
Yeah, I
4 feet
contacted
of fill or something.
Denise today,
Yeah,
so,
which would alter your grading plan.
yeah, let me go back. Yeah, so you can see, let me see what it is. Yeah, so the wetland permit required that this be paved. We were originally gonna have it gravel, so that, you know, precipitation seeps into the ground, there's no runoff. Wetland commission required this be paved. What's that?
Process, no, it doesn't seep into the.
Well, it's gonna be filled with dumpsters anyway, so
Right.
the water's gonna go.
Well, our regulations call for outdoor storage areas to be paved.
Paved, okay.
And if inland wetlands is requiring it to be paved, and
Okay.
zoning regulations require it to be paved, I think you pretty much have your answer, what you need to do there.
Okay, took a shot.
But that's still not, is that still gonna affect your grading though?
So,
Whether
so,
it's
so
paved or not.
what I was looking at, so if we were to pitch it, if it's gotta be pitched back to the parking lot. So in order to do that, we're gonna have 4 feet of fill at this corner. So it's possible, this is a 4-on-1 slope. I took a look at it, it's possible the grade is down and meets grade before the edge of the wetland. But I'm not sure what that would do to our wetland permit.
It's gonna require you to go back. That's why I'm
Yeah.
raising the point now.
Yeah. Right. So the other thing I was looking at, I mean, and I talked to Scott about this, is that in lieu of pitching it back, grading it down and having it collect to a storm system that would go to an infiltration.
I don't remember talking about that.
But if you did that, how's that gonna affect your septic system?
Well, septic systems remote
that's your
from it.
reserve area,
The
that-
septic
that
system's
point.
way over here, it'll be over here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that
Oh, you-
between that storage area and the added sidewalk, you would need to change your drainage counts again, because you're increasing.
Well, I'm thinking this could be an infiltration.
And you'd have to go back to the wetlands commission for
But
that.
how are you gonna put a catch basin and a pipe in your reserve area?
You can slope this down, have a curb.
Right, but that's your septic reserve area.
Okay,
Which is part and parcel with getting more information with the health department, that's the
Yeah,
adequacy
so
of
that's
the
not gonna
system.
work, digging into that.
we have some work to do on this. It'll be addressed by Tuesday,
Okay.
hopefully.
Anything else, staff? There's no sense in spending a lot of time going through
No, I just wanna make
a
sure
bunch
that,
of your comments if
Yeah.
plans are changing.
that's fine, those things I just wanna highlight, because I wanna make sure they deal with those before we come back again, we have to say the same thing.
Yeah,
And I've been in contact with him, so I'll continue to work with him.
okay. Now, let's see if there's any public input, since it is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Anyone have any general questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Seer, back to you.
And that I conclude, and we will resubmit revised plans based on comments that we received this week on Tuesday.
Anybody have any last questions before we adjourn this hearing?
With regards to schedule, are you confident you'll be able to deal with this?
I'm sorry, Keith.
With regards to schedule, are you confident you'll be able to deal with the health department, inland wetlands with regards to that issue and all the other issues by next Tuesday?
In 2 weeks?
Well,
it's
no,
really
you have until next Tuesday to get the plans in.
Correct, but the
For a meeting in
hearing, this
2
hearing's
weeks.
convened until the 19th, right, 2 weeks from today?
Correct.
Right. And at that point, can we get another extension beyond that?
You can, well, you can give us another
Okay.
extension, but I'm just saying is, I'd rather you do a good job than a rush job.
Right, right.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we continue it to the 19th? If you find that by next Tuesday, you're just not going to have everything that's needed,
Right,
let staff know, and we'll just push it out to the first meeting in January.
okay. Okay.
I'd rather do that than have you come and then
Right.
you have to come back again anyway.
The wild card is the outdoor storage area. And I'm talking to the owner about it. The owner just had a knee replacement. He has been out of pocket.
Yeah, next Tuesday. Yeah,
Just want to be clear on that.
yep.
Okay. That's the main issue, is the outdoor storage right now.
Now, where do we stand on time, Will?
We are now in, we have to, November 28th on our clock. Obviously, that's, we've already passed that. So we used 8 days of extension to get here. So they have another 57 days left to give us, which is, you know,
But
Couple
they-
months,
But
so.
they need to,
it's an extension verbally right now, which is gonna get followed up with a letter. But there's plenty of time to get us, you know, another, if we need to go into January.
So what was it, we had 57 days, you said?
You have 57 days left to grant us,
From today?
from today.
Okay.
for now, we'll continue this until the 19th,
Right.
7:42.
So we're getting all the plans on that.
Next up, item number 8, EFP 2019-02, file number 103, 7 and 15 Main Street, B1 District, excavation fill permit application for the excavation, removal, and export of approximately 64,200 cubic yards of excavated materials off-site to 4 Main Street, companion application EFP 2019-03, file number 104, located across the street, including general site preparation work for future potential development. 1-15 Main Street, Monroe LLC, owner applicant. This is reconvened from November 7th, 2019. Will?
The only thing we have is AOT comments by the health department. We do not have any new materials at all for this project.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Larry LaPere. I am a licensed engineer in the state of Connecticut. I work for Solely Engineering. We have offices at 501 Main Street here in Monroe. Tonight I'm here representing the applicant, 115 Main Street LLC, for this application for excavation and fill permit. You do not have it. We did have a beginning of a public hearing about a month ago. You do not have any updated plans. One of the things we discussed at the time was that we were going to add another lot to this. The 1 Main Street is in common ownership with 7 and 15. And the location of 1 Main Street was critical to a potential access point. And the board asked us to include that and attempt to get an access directly to Main Street from one portion of our site. The survey for that has not been completed, and so that's why we haven't gotten any updated plans. But let me run through what we have done, which is address as many of the comments as we could that have been made thus far. And I'll present it so that the members of the public will understand the project, and if anyone on the board also needs some either refreshing or has not seen this before, they can understand the project. So the site location is right on the border of Monroe and Trumbull on Main Street. It's on the west side of Main Street. This is, of course, Monroe, and down here is where the site is. There's the location right here. This is 15. This is 7. This little triangle here is 1. This is Old Turnpike Road, and this is Main Street. This is the original survey of the site, which included the 15 and 7. As I said, our previous time here, we had talked about adding 1 Main Street because this driveway location here, which is intended to be used during the excavation activities, exits onto Old Turnpike Road. And this is a terrible corner to try to negotiate with a truck or anything else for that matter, if you're turning right. And of course, the site that we anticipate delivering the fill to is over here. We'll learn a little bit more about that in a minute because the application for that is here tonight as well. But the application, the decision was to try to get a roadway here directly across to access Main Street, and that's why 1 Main Street has become part of the application. So here's our site plan. Well, not our site plan, our grading plan for the excavation plan. And this is very little has changed in general with this plan. There have been some modifications, again, based on some of the comments that have been made previously. But if you notice here, this is 1 Main Street, and there's a few things here that are going to be important to us. This dashed line here is a realignment of Old Turnpike Road. So our proposal is going to be to realign Old Turnpike Road, and during the excavation, exit the site here, come across here, and get onto Route 25 with a 90-degree intersection. We can then take a quick right-hand turn and come down to the site where we're planning to deliver a good portion of the excavation from this site, which would be 4 Main Street. So here's the erosion control plan. You can see that there's a sedimentation basin here. There's anti-tracking pads here, and this is part of the new location of what will eventually become Old Turnpike Road. The site together is about 6.2 acres. We anticipate excavating approximately 80,000 cubic yards. The site across the street is anticipating receiving about 45 or 50,000 cubic yards. So there is a little bit of excess there that will wind up being available to the general market. There may be others in the area who need fill, and the owner is anticipating that that would be made available, as I said, to the general market. We have requested from the board waivers, grading waivers for several of the aspects of the zoning code to allow us to grade this the way it is. The board last time asked us to show them what it would look like if the waivers were not granted. And these are the rough limits of our excavation if none of the waivers were granted, meaning from within inside this box here, I'll call it, this area, we could then begin our grading. We would not have any grading out in this area at all. Underneath here, you can see the proposal for the future development, which is a concept plan that we've come up with, but this is what the owner is intending to do. You'll see that if we were held to excavate within this area, we would not be able to finalize our excavation for this particular project. So it's possible that we could do some excavation and then have to stop and wait until we got site plan approval in order to continue. So we're trying to get approvals to do what we need to do the one time and have one continuous excavation operation until we get to the grades that we need to get to. So, so this is what the board had asked us to look at, so there you have it. There would be a large constriction to the availability of getting our grades done essentially in one operation, so that if we had to, we'd have to cease operations, come back and finalize later on, which I think would be more of an impact to adjacent neighbors, certainly the impact to the site in terms of being able to develop it in a reasonable manner.
Why can't you configure the proposed building to fit the allowable area on the site?
You mean this?
Yes.
Well, it's a very large site. We have a certain developable capability for the site, and this particular building is nowhere near that. It's just the site does have a certain development potential from a standpoint of zoning, and if we were not allowed to do this grading, we could come in again and ask for a site plan and have the grades approved at that point, right? And
No, what I'm saying is, why don't you design a building that will fit on the lot and conform with the current regulations?
well, this building does. This building conforms to
Grading-
just,
the
He's talking about the
is-
grading.
The grading is zoning.
well, the building, and therefore what we would intend to apply for at site plan, right, conforms to zoning, and at that point, we would be allowed to grade in this area if we got a permit. We are simply asking to do the grading ahead of time, and the grading
No,
requirements
you
are
would not
different.
be able to do that grading for that building unless you got a waiver at that time. My point is, why can't you design something that you don't need a waiver for?
Well, again, it then severely limits the development potential of this to the point where it's considerably less than what the zoning code would generally allow. At this particular site immediately to the north, virtually exactly the same situation occurs, where there's a large cut right at the property line, and the property was cut down to road grade so that it could be developed. So it's not that this is not in keeping with what's going on in the neighborhood. This would be essentially similar to what was going on here. In fact, if we look at the cross sections, I think that is, let's see, I want cross-section J, I think. So here is cross-section J, which is in here, right? It's right through the middle of our site, and then it goes to the north to this site here, right? And what you see is this site has been cut down, right? This is a rock cut to approximately this elevation, which is where the road grade is, right? We're attempting to do the similar thing on our site, and so in order to get a more appropriate development in terms of the development potential for the whole site, it's 6.5 acres, and if we had to restrict it to the building envelope that you're talking about, it would severely reduce the capabilities of the site in terms of development potential. And so we're just kind of asking for the same kinds of things that we've done elsewhere in town on this site. It happens to be a lot of cut, I understand that. There are deep cuts and there's a lot of material coming out. But that's what the proposal is for.
The sites in the north didn't have all that much cut.
That's
That
got-
site has historically been the way it you
There was
mostly.
a building on the south end of that property. They did not do a cut there when they did the current project.
Maybe not, but somewhere along the line, there's a rock cut here,
There used to be a building right there.
here.
Yeah.
And there still is.
Yeah,
Well, at some point it was cut, is what I'm saying.
well,
Yeah, but
before
that's-
my time,
Yeah, predates, so.
I
I
don't know,
mean,
does that?
maybe 60, 70, 80 years ago, but there was no cut made in that area for the current project.
Okay, I'm just saying this particular project with these cuts is in keeping with what's going on in the same kind of thing in the neighborhood, or has happened in the past. So the proposal then, at this point, is for simply excavation and fill permit. And the request again is made so that we can do some of the excavation ahead of time. There is a lot of excavation that needs to happen. We've estimated it could take us close to a year to do all the excavation. It's really, currently, it is something that would work well with the proposal next door, because there's a lot of cut coming out of here and a lot of fill that wants to go there. And so the two projects would work very well with each other, and they're really right next door to each other. So this is an opportunity for each of the sites to get developed simultaneously with the other. That kind of opportunity doesn't happen very often. It really is a couple hundred yards of driving on the road, if that much, to get from one site to the other. And that's really kind of a unique opportunity in terms of getting that done. Oftentimes you have these kinds of cuts, and you get on the roads and you might have half a mile or more in order to get to whatever your destination is. So that is the proposal. We, as I said, have not submitted revised plans because we don't have this survey data available. We expect it tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to have all of this ready for a submittal by next week. And
Did you run that by the state?
Excuse me?
Did you run that proposed access to the main street by the state?
Not yet. We need to. We need to get a permit from them. We understand that.
Can you clarify that? Are you proposing to actually make the connection as a new road portion
Yes.
and then use it? Or use it then?
No, I think we'll use it, and then eventually, we would use it temporarily for the excavation and fill up, the excavation operations, and then make the road change after that when we do the site.
Do you think the state would allow you to do that and still have it go out north?
No, they'd probably have to stop one and then the other. Oh, you mean on a temporary basis?
Yeah.
I think so. It would be a gravel drive. No, I don't think automobiles traversing Old Turnpike would want to use that.
No, they wouldn't, but now you got two, you would have two things at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, any traffic coming this way and turning right onto here was not an issue. And anyone coming from here, I don't know that we're necessarily going to come out here and try to simultaneously with this guy trying to get out. You might go right behind him, I don't know.
Well, we'll see what DOT thinks.
Yeah,
Is any of that
clearly we have to
proposed,
get an approval from DOT.
is any of that proposed work in Trumbull?
Excuse me?
Is any of that proposed work in
No,
Trumbull?
it turns out that the edge of this, and I talked to the surveyor today, the edge of one Main Street is the town line. So, no, we don't propose any of the work to be in Trumbull, because if we did, it wouldn't be on our property. So, everything that we intend to do will be on one Main Street, or here, the right-of-way for Old Turnpike. Which, by the way, I know we had a conversation about what that was. Our surveyors found some documentation from the state from the 1930s that indicated that Old Turnpike Road had been abandoned to the town of Monroe. So the last record we have is that the town of Monroe has ownership of that. I don't know if there's anything subsequent to that where it may have been transferred elsewhere, but.
Well, you can provide that, right?
Huh?
You're gonna
I
provide
did.
that.
No, I didn't. I haven't sent it to we will, yeah.
Okay. So now we need both town and state in regards to the road change.
Agreed.
Would Trumbull have any say, even though it's not in Trumbull, because of the way the road changes?
No, they might. I mean, it's
So
planned,
you're
right?
actually
Anything
proposing to
within-
truck the fill, you're actually proposing to truck the fill to the Trumbull end
The
of the other
driveway on the
property.
site next door is in Trumbull, that's correct.
Yeah.
And that's our access point, yes.
Well, I meant for the road improvement.
No, I understand. I will tell you, right, it's within 500 feet of the town line. Generally, there's some input
Yeah.
at least. I don't
Yeah.
know that they have necessarily approval rights, but they certainly have input rights.
I mean, do you really think you can construct it without going over that town line? Seems hard to believe that, but.
Yes, I do, and the reason is because we have to put a radius on it, so this area will be kind of away from the town line. We'll start at the town line and put our radius in at that point. Let me see if I can get closer here and see if this, is this easy to see, this radius here? Maybe on the wrong plan. Let me see if I get a better plan. This one? No, one above it. Right, so here we are. We're perpendicular at the town line, and we're gonna put a radius on and go out here. And so, yeah, I think we can accomplish that without
I
going
mean,
into
because
trouble.
traffic control would obviously spill over, so there's gonna be some involvement with that.
Yeah, for sure. And here's the thing, we're in the road right-of-way here, where we're making the joint
Right.
with the adjacent roadway, that's road right-of-way. So, I don't foresee an issue in staying on the property that is here. I think at some point down the road, this area here would need to be abandoned from a road standpoint,
Discontinued, you mean?
discontinued, what have you. And I don't know where the property line would eventually wind up, but I can see that we could swap this part of one for this part of the road, and I think that affects the plan so much, because,
Well, it's just another approval you have to get by town council.
right. I think there's certainly some issues here that need to be resolved.
We have another one
Another,
procedurally. You're adding a parcel into the work, and that wasn't part of our noticing requirements. So I'm gonna have to talk to land use council.
we
about what-
can't close this tonight anyway, so.
Well, I get that, but I mean, if we have to notice, I don't know what
I'm saying
timing
maybe we
and
could
what
just
clock
notice
it starts.
notice that it has,
Yeah, no, that's possible, but I would like to talk to land use council to
yeah,
figure out
we'll
what.
do, I understand we may have to jump through some hoops, and
Yeah.
I think we would jump through some hoops.
Okay.
So that's the proposal. We did take a look at, I know that Scott had mentioned in one of his comments about cutting a road up here in order to access originally our septic areas were up in this area on the west end of the site at the top of the hill. And I think it was Scott's comment, it was yours, right? That they asked us to grade to see if we could get up there. And so we took a look at it real quick, and it turns out that there's probably 30 or 35,000 yards of material that have to come out in order for us to do that. To get a road, all the way up here. It was a massive cut. The owner did not want to do that. It really puts a kind of a gash into the middle of the property that they didn't want to do. So we are,
Actually, I was talking about making a access way into the upper table of your cut that you're proposing.
here,
Yeah, in other words, no, below that.
here.
Yeah, in the area, in other words, in the area between the basin and the toe of slope or the wall, the exposed wall.
Right.
Because you're gonna have to go in there to maintain stuff, so I was just merely saying that there needs to be a driveway down on the south end of your cut to get in there to be able to maintain it once you have a finished product.
Somewhere along here, you mean?
Yeah, somewhere, well, maybe to the right a little bit more.
Here.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
to
there to in other words, yeah, you're gonna be leaving a grass driveway in there, so you can drive some type of vehicle in there so that you can maintain it in the time that you're waiting to develop it.
Okay.
You have to maintain it after you build it, too.
Well, here's the other thing too. I mean, if this is an access that can be made by four-wheel drive trucks or other equipment that needs to get up there and do that, that's one thing. If it's a road, if it's a drive that needs to be, I don't know, an 8% drive, that's a different thing entirely. So I think we probably could work something up through here that would work at a, I don't know, 15% slope. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I don't know if that's allowable.
Yeah, I was really talking about, and it might be, I didn't look at the grading real close, but now I was talking about in front of that, from the, do this. You know,
Well,
and-
Scott,
and
regardless of where it is, the issue really comes to be, what kind of grade does it have to have? Because if it needs a slighter grade, then why can't you just build a driveway that builds something up the top, and you can use the top for building?
Yeah, well, I was saying that it needs a driveway here that comes into this flat area.
So you can exit here, if you come in here, right, at these grades, you can drive to here. You can also drive up here, right?
Yeah, so what are you proposing to leave it as? Gravel, grass?
No,
What do you-
well, you say leave, prepare for our eventual site plan, right? We're hoping that the site plan gets approved prior to the finish of this cut.
Right, but
Which means
this,
cut would be
this
right.
application isn't looking at the future. This application is looking at what you want to do right now, you're gonna grade it, and then it's gonna have a finished product.
Right,
And that finished product, as far as we're concerned, could last 20, 30 years.
right.
So we want to make sure that it's left in a condition that is maintainable.
Right, so here's what the plan indicates, and we have a restoration plan. The final aspect of this will be, this is mostly rock cut, so this whole area here is rock, and then it will have 6 inches of topsoil on top of it and grass, if it does not proceed to site plan. So that if for some reason the site plan doesn't go forward, the restoration plan would finalize the site with these grades, if they get that far, and I assume that they might. And then, so one of two things will happen. Either the restoration plan will be enacted, and you'd have 6 inches of topsoil everywhere with seeding, you'd have grass, and a nice looking shelf, two things to shelf, grass that you could play soccer on maybe, but, or it would be our site plan, whatever that is. So it's one or the other, but these plans include assuming that there's a site plan, right? And I think I've shown this to you, right? So this is really what we'd like to do.
So again, how do you get to maintain that septic system, even if you got to build that?
Well, okay, so there was one thing that we did was try to take a road through here, we didn't like that. So we're looking at other options. One of the options is what we just talked about, which is the possibility of coming up here with a road that is not an 8% road. There are some other options that we are exploring, and one of them is to see if we can gain easement access from any of the adjacent property owners. That's
You
another
can't, it's
option.
residential.
No?
It's residential, not
And
allowed under zoning.
access is not,
You can't access a commercial property from a residential district,
okay?
other than by a public street.
There is another possibility of perhaps obtaining some other land that we could go through there that is not in residential zone. So, so we're exploring those options. And that will also be resolved by the time we send you updated plans for your review, which we're hoping will be next week. If we can get the survey stuff resolved, it will be next week. So that's our plan at the moment. I'll entertain any questions if you have them. If there's any other information you want me to give that maybe I didn't give you, I'm happy to do that.
You're always first.
I'm good.
I'll pass from now.
Okay.
Just for clarification, the existing height of the property is 80 feet today, correct?
About that, we're at 3, Chris, you know, this is Chris Pulowski, who's also with our office. An idea of the grades here, I think we're at 3.
Yeah, about 340 there, and at the top we're around 420.
420, right. So 80 feet change in grade from,
And we're planning on going down to road height.
excuse me?
And you're planning on going down to road height with a finished
No,
road?
not quite. This elevation up here, we're from this part of the road, which is a little bit higher than the rest of it, we plan on coming up about 5 or 6 feet. We don't want to get too high above it because then you can't see it from the road, but it'll be slightly above grade.
And getting rid of the rock, no blasting, you're not planning on blasting?
You know, I've talked to the folks who are going to do this, and he insists that it can be done with just hammering it. We have suggested that maybe he wants to consider blasting. He said, if I have to consider blasting, I will, but first I'm going to find out if I can do it with the hammer. So right now, there's no proposal for blasting.
Okay, and also on the north end of the Old Turnpike Road, planning on completely eliminating,
That's what the long-term plan is, yes.
okay.
Realigning that access and getting rid of the substandard access for.
Yep. Thank you.
Almost have.
Okay. Can you go back to the alternate excavation plan?
Alternate excavation plan?
Yeah, the alternate.
Oh,
plan
yeah,
you
okay.
did.
now
The regulation compliant plan.
Right.
Right. After this one. That, right?
Yes, so that is,
Oh, the developable area if we do not get any waivers for grading
Right.
adjacent to our property. Yeah.
so now, that's the best you could do then, right? I mean, I wasn't really following your argument why you didn't want to do this, because you couldn't fit the building
I
and
can't,
the
I can't,
parking in
I
there?
can't do, this is, underneath here is what we plan to do. And if
Yes.
we can't grade outside of
Right.
this envelope, then we can't do that plan.
No, and there's not enough square footage there to reconfigure the parking in the building.
Within here?
Correct.
No,
In there.
Well, it just doesn't work.
It would be a smaller building.
You can't move that westerly line back more towards the property line, that's as far as
This
you
one?
can.
No, keep going.
The one on the west
This
side,
one?
that one, you can't move that back more?
No, we probably could. We stopped it here because we don't want to get here.
But you could move it back more and thereby create more usable land while maintaining the regulations for slopes.
You could. Again, remember, we have a serious challenge here with grade. That's a big cut. One of the reasons that the roadway that goes up here was so, I'll call it ugly, was that we were still in 30-foot cuts up in here. So we're trying to minimize the amount of disturbance to the site that we can and still get what amounts to be a viable project for us.
Have you tried talking to the neighbor in the north?
This guy?
Yeah, because his northern end isn't quite as bad to get up to the top. And if you coordinate it together, you could probably use this whole back area as well, which would be even bigger than what you got.
We have not, to answer your question, no, we have. I guess we could. I don't. I
Because
don't-
he'd like to get up there himself, so you might be able to help him.
And that would
Can I grade
eliminate
along the
that,
property line?
that would eliminate
What?
that big
Can
knob
I
between the
grade
two properties.
I think that would be a wonderful thing, right? Because if you look at the cross-section, we looked at it a minute ago, J, which is, that's not it, is it? D, so keep going. All right, cross-section, yeah, here it is. This is just a hill in, it's a 15 or 18-foot high hill at this point that doesn't need to be there.
You know, the reason that we have these setbacks for changing of grade is because of the impact that your development would have on the neighboring property.
Understood.
So if you're making a deal with your neighbor and you get rid of that knob,
Right.
I think that the commission would be very amenable to waiving any
Very interesting. I mean,
regulations on that property line.
I appreciate that. And in fact, section J is one of the discussion items that I want to have for exactly that reason. You see the elevation in this area, right, is lower, so there's still got a little knob here so that folks over here can't really see what's going on in here. Yes, they don't see the top of this hill like they used to, but this whole area is kind of shielded from them site-wise. So both neighbors on either side are somewhat shielded from visual impacts. Clearly, we'd love to be able to get rid of this, I think. I just don't know, again, it's you're dealing with a neighbor, I don't know what is, whether or
It
not.
wouldn't hurt to ask.
Excuse me?
It wouldn't hurt to ask.
No, not at all. I agree. We'd be happy to pursue it.
Well, I mean, not only that location, but on the other side, on the north end of his is a lot less severe. I mean, it's still a grade change, but
Right.
it's lots less severe. He's also talked about, he's got the old house and then the flatter building that was added in the 50s or 60s. But he always talked about getting rid of the white house to get up to the top.
Uh-huh. Interesting, okay.
What is the parking lot? Is
A
that-
gun range.
Gun range, right?
So, that's our proposal. Again, happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, thank you, I'm done with that.
Staff have anything for right now?
My real concern at the moment, time-wise, is the noticing issue.
Okay.
Because we're not gonna be able to cure that by the next meeting, for sure.
Likely not, I would agree. I mean, what are the?
I don't know how this impacts it, because we have a clock that's running. Will that reset the clock? Do you have to withdraw and resubmit? I don't know. Those are questions I gotta ask the council.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to help you answer that in any way I can,
Yeah.
so.
All right, let's see if there's anyone from the public that wants to weigh in. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Any general questions or comments? Back to you.
Thank you, that's our presentation. Again, we know that we cannot close the public hearing, don't want to close the public hearing, because we need to put some other data in, so we would request that it be extended at least until the next meeting. Is it the 18th or 19th?
The
Well, give
19th
it-
is our next meeting.
Given
But
the
it-
timing, you have to give us the extension. We have till the 12th. Because you need to give the extension past the 12th. So you're gonna acknowledge that tonight verbally, correct?
Just, could you repeat that, and I'd be happy to.
The commission has till December 12th under their clock.
Oh, okay.
So after the 12th, we're on your time. So you actually are, would be granting us an extension to get to the 19th. But,
What happens if you don't grant us an extension?
Well, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna.
We will have to close this hearing
I got it.
tonight and
And
vote
everybody goes
on
home.
the information we have.
Right. I would be happy to grant the board an extension to extend the public hearing beyond December 12th.
so beyond that, we also, after, in the coming days or so,
Right.
we'll deal with the noticing issue.
Right, and we'll also find out what additional
Yeah.
extension I mean.
Correct.
So would you like to continue this to December 19th or January 2nd?
Let's say December 19th, and we'll see over the next couple of days what we do, but again, we'll get in touch with you if for some reason the 19th just doesn't work out.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you.
Continue to the 19th, 8:16 PM.
Oh, we got two.
All right, next up. Item number 9, EFP 2019-03, file number 104, 4 Main Street, B1 and I1 districts. Excavation fill permit application to import approximately 64,200 cubic yards of excavated fill material from 7 and 15 Main Street. Companion application EFP 2019-02, file number 103, located across the street to fill the site to an average elevation of approximately 322 feet, including general site preparation work for future potential development. 7192 Main Street LLC, owner applicant, and this is reconvened from our November 7th, 2019 meeting. Will, what do you have?
Exhibit 9, I got a notice from application to Trumbull Planning and Zoning Commission. Exhibit 10, response to ART comments. Exhibit 11, updated engineering report summary by the applicant. Exhibit 12, excavating field permit progress report, draft plan form by the applicant. Exhibit 13, waiver request letter from applicant. Exhibit 14, updated engineering report by the applicant. Exhibit 15, updated plan set by the applicant. Exhibit 16, ART engineering comments. Exhibit 17, ART health department comments, and Exhibit 18, ART planning and zoning comments. That is all.
Okay, the applicant.
Again, for the record, my name is Larry LaPere with Solely Engineering, 501 Main Street, Monroe, Connecticut.
Okay, Mr. LaPere, just for the record.
Yes.
Again, plans that the commission has not seen until tonight. These
Those
are-
plans should have been there.
They
These
were received
plans-
at
Number of days
4:30,
ago.
close of office
These-
Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, they were dropped off 4:30 PM the day before Thanksgiving, so they did not get out to the commission because town hall was closed on Friday. So there was no time to mail them. The commissioners received these tonight at this meeting, so these plans have not been reviewed.
My apologies. We generally try to get that, you know, a week ahead of time, and so I didn't realize that the
So
town hall was
again,
closed
you know,
on Friday.
again, I've had this conversation with Mr. Solly multiple times. We don't like to proceed with public hearings with information that we haven't had a chance to review.
Understood,
So
yeah. Okay.
we can go forward from there.
Okay, and one other thing, we do not anticipate, nor would we want to close the public hearing tonight anyway. We do not have wetlands approval yet. It turns out we were supposed to appear before wetlands last month, and there was no quorum. So it was, the wetlands application
Bless you.
will be heard next week.
Okay, and Will,
So-
where do we stand on the clock with this? Same thing?
Probably.
Yeah, that's the same as the last one. The other difference too, though, given that you're not done with wetlands, there is another 35 days from when they finish that we also can tack on to our time. So we are scheduled up to the 12th. And when did you say you had wetlands?
Well, the 11th, but on the chance that it's not approved then, I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
guess I
whenever it's
should- I
approved,
should-
we would have another 35 days, but we're gonna start ticking into that. So we're gonna have a conundrum in that sense.
Well,
But you have extension.
I'd be happy to give you an extension.
Okay.
So we represent actually a different client here. This is 7180 Main Street LLC. And so this is the site across the street that I was talking about a little while ago. We're in the same general area here. This is down Monroe. Here we're down on Main Street, right at the Trumbull line. Let's see, I don't need that site. This is the site right here, right on the line. A good portion of this building is in Trumbull. We have been to Trumbull because we need to process both wetlands and planning and zoning in both towns. And we've been to Trumbull to planning and zoning, and we'll meet them again at the end of this month, or the 19th, I think, or maybe it's the 18th, sorry. And we got wetlands approval earlier this week. They did give us an approval for the wetland stuff. Now, this site.
From Trumbull or Monroe?
In Trumbull,
Okay.
right? Sorry, in Trumbull. So the board may be familiar with some aspects of this site in that this area here is currently, as we speak, on a part of 5 Victoria Drive. There is a land transfer in the process now, and just today, the Mylars were signed by both owners, so we would anticipate filing that either tomorrow
They did
or
sign it?
Monday. Both owners have signed it.
Because I'm not sure I approved the final number.
We got some comments from, we'll give you the map.
I don't know, I haven't heard from Chris in a while. so.
Okay, yeah, we'll give you the map. We'll give you the, it's going from my office to Chris's, and I think he's gonna handle it from there. So you should get it from him within the next day or two. But it is signed and moving forward. So we're hopeful that that will be resolved by next week. So, 5 Victoria. There was some wetlands issues in the past, and there was an area here that was deemed to be, to be remediated. And because of some litigations between the owners of the 2 lots, not the current owner of this lot, the wetlands remediation was deferred until some future date. I don't think it was a clearly defined future date, but in any case, so the new owner here has taken on those obligations, and so really one of the big aspects of this application was with wetlands in Monroe to install the wetlands mitigation that had been discussed in the past and enhance and enlarge the existing wetland area in through here, which is quite a nice wetland and worth enlarging and enhancing. There's also some wetland in through here. This little portion is what was in Trumbull, which is not such a wonderful wetland. It has very limited functions and values, as indicated by our wetland scientist, Jim McManus, who went out and took the functions and values analysis. As I said, we went to the wetlands in Trumbull the other night. They agreed that there was not a lot of high-quality function value in that wetland. So we have planned to disturb that area in order to make water quality basins. This is a sedimentation basin, and this is a water quality basin on the downstream side of that. So in this area, we plan to have those water quality basins, and that did have to disrupt this wetland, and part of that wetland is in Monroe, and we're going to the Wetlands Commission to try to get that approved next week, as I said. This area, we're proposing to put fill. The site plan that we anticipate doing, let's take a quick look at that. I guess this is it right here, yeah. So this is a restaurant, retail, and some residential, which I will need some action by the town, if in fact that were to proceed like that. And so this is the proposal at the moment. In order to accomplish that, we would have this grading plan. We're filling the central areas of the site. We have erosion control features on either end, where drainage will come down through these check dams and then eventually go into our sedimentation pond. Both sides of the site will have the drainage swales with check dams. The area here near the wetlands, this line, this dashed line here, and I'll try to run along, this dashed line here is the 100-year floodplain according to topography based on the 100-year flood elevation of, Chris, 298.4. That's according to our existing topography. Also in here, it's not as obvious, is the FEMA flood line, which is right along here, and comes in through FEMA from the firm, that little dashed line there, and then it comes up and goes in this direction. So there's some fairly good correlation between the existing FEMA firm line and the topographic interpretation of the flood limits. And so we're working from the topographic interpretation of the flood limits, but the elevation is, we're looking for is 280, 4.9? 280. Yeah, the flood.
Yes. But I had asked for, the floodplain location is really the contours that were there before it was filled, before it was disturbed. So you can't go by the contour that's there today because there's no NOMAR that was listed, that was issued for this property. So therefore, the fill or the disturbance that took place needs to be permitted through the federal program. And so the location of the regulatory floodplain is the location in 1984 prior to the adoption of the regulations, and certainly prior to the disturbance on the property. So that's, I had asked for the third set of contour information, because that's what's needed in order to determine where the floodplain is, unless you know of a LOMAR that was submitted.
I don't, but let me just say this, I think you and I are probably gonna need to talk offline and try to kind of come to some resolution here, and I apologize, I think we're doing a little dancing back and forth on the phone earlier today. Our position is, as of 2005, FEMA had issued a document that indicated that compensating storage was not necessary according to FEMA regulations, but encouraged, and they actually, this document was written for towns to use to enact legislation, towns or states, to enact legislation to include some of these aspects for the National Flood Insurance Program, one of which was instituting compensating storage requirements. So as of 2005, neither FEMA nor the state of Connecticut had any requirement for compensating storage when filling in
Right, but you didn't have a permit for it, and now you're asking for a permit, and the regulation is now. There isn't a grandfather clause. It goes by the regulation today is what I'm trying to indicate. And so you have to show that what we regulate is what was there before the disturbance. I'm not saying you can't do what you want to do, I'm just saying we gotta start somewhere. The place to start is to show the accurate regulatory floodplain limits. You have to start there, and then we'll move forward. But you can't say that, well, back in 2005, they didn't require compensatory. Well, yeah, but they required a permit, and you didn't get a permit, and you did the work, so now we have to permit it.
You or a previous property owner.
Your previous
A
property.
previous property owner,
Right.
yeah, and so there's a sticking point there, and I do think we are gonna need to discuss this further, because again, listen, FEMA actually encouraged people to fill in floodplains up to the floodway, because you could then use land. It would be out of the floodplain, you wouldn't get flooded when the flood came through.
Well, that wasn't in 2000.
No, it was,
That was in 1940.
no, they weren't around. But I can tell you this, it was in the 1980s, and I'll tell you why I know this, because when I got out of college in the 1970s, first place I worked was for Leonard Jackson Associates, and probably 50% of the work they did was flood insurance studies, and I worked on flood insurance studies for 6 years in the early 1980s. So I have a very good understanding of what FEMA's requirements were at the time, and at the time, they were encouraging filling into the floodplain so that you would prevent flood damage to whatever properties you were building in the floodplains. Now, they defined a limit, the floodway limit, such that there would be no further downstream flooding. The problem with that is they didn't realize, and listen, a lot of this stuff happens where you enact something and then you go do it and find out there was something you missed. And what they missed was, if you assumed, or if you had 1,000 CFS flowing in your channel, and you filled in, and they still tried to determine the hydraulics based on 1,000 CFS. The problem is, if you lose a lot of your storage areas, that's not 1,000 CFS anymore, it's 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, it's more. And they found out that it wasn't working the way they wanted to, and that's when they started to understand that compensating storage was a necessary thing to make sure that their program that they had defined in the 60s and 70s was going to function properly. In any case, I think we do need to go to look at this and iron this out, because this is an issue, because what we're planning on doing here, let's see if I can get a cross section. Is that not it?
And by the way, the disturbance to the property was happening subsequent to 2006. Because that's when I came here, and I went out to that property and witnessed the filling happening at that point.
Was it?
So not only did it happen before that, but it happened after 2006
Okay.
with no permit. And so you can't have it both ways, unfortunately. You can't say, well, they used to allow that, and that's what we did, but you didn't, but what the previous owner did, but they never got a permit to do it. And so, and they did it after 2006. So
Okay.
I'm just trying
That's-
to
no,
get on the
that's
same
new-
page with you
that's
so we can
new
get something
information to take
going
a look
here.
at. Were they ever issued a violation?
They were not, they were issued a violation, yes, it took this long to get, and the violation was processed through the Wetlands Commission, and they posted a bond because they said that the neighbor, the predecessor to your client, was in violation, they had a civil issue, and so they were going to court to address the civil issue, so they
Right.
asked Wetlands if they could defer that, so they could work that out. And so the commission said, yeah, sure, give us a bond, and they did, they posted a bond in waiting for them to work out their civil issue, and then depending upon what they did, and here we are today, which is good, you know, they worked out the civil issue, so now we're coming to resolve the wetland issue. But along with that is the floodplain issue too, we gotta resolve.
So, I just wanted, there is a cross-section that runs through the area, this area here, we've changed orientations here, and I apologize. This is the area we're talking about, and this cross-section goes right through it. We decided to show the flood elevation 284.4 here, 298.4, to indicate how much excavation we're taking in the floodplain that is available for compensating storage that was not previously. So we are excavating quite a bit of material here. It's 4 or 5 feet in some areas. This will flood and be available. Obviously, the stuff below it, this is the sedimentation bond, so the area below this berm may be filled with water when the flood comes along. Likely will be filled with water when the flood comes along, so it's not available for compensating storage. The several feet above it is, where it wasn't. So I just wanted to let everyone know there is an enhancement here as part of our proposal to increase the amount of flood storage capacity in that area. Okay, so I do think we're going to need to probably.
Sure.
And
Which end
I'd
is
be
the
happy.
site?
Excuse me?
Which end is the developed part of the site?
Up here,
Okay.
right. We are looking now, on your left is west, on your right is east. This is the river, down in this area is the river that's causing all that flooding. So again, we have asked for waivers here as well, the same 4 sections of the code, in order to accomplish the fill operations. This obviously opposite the one across the street, this is all fill operation. And so there's our proposal. Basically 2 things: fill the 80,000 yards or 60,000 yards, and do the wetland enhancements that were part of that whole thing that went on for years and years and years. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Ron?
I'm okay, I'm okay. No questions. No questions.
No questions?
So you're gonna get back with Scott?
Yes, I think
On the
Scott and I are
engineering
going to
comments.
have some in-depth discussions.
All right, so then I'll hold my questions till after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I will do the same. Staff, anything else?
Well, I think both Scott and I have memos on this that I actually got to go over tonight, but those are things that need to be addressed.
Anybody from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone would like to speak in opposition? Any general questions or comments?
We're all set. Again, please don't close the public hearing, and we'll let you know by next Tuesday if the 19th works. If not, we'll defer till January. And we will get to documentation on.
So you're going
the
to
extension.
wetlands when again?
Wetlands is the 11th. It's next Wednesday.
So you're not going to wetlands until after the deadline for submission?
Yeah, well, this has to be continued to the 2nd,
Okay,
because we're not gonna have the wetland stuff before the cutoff.
right.
Yeah, and I think wetlands is just like you, they need their stuff ahead of time too.
Yeah.
So if we know that they're revising it some more, so.
I think the stuff for wetlands is in already.
Yeah, she's reviewing today.
So we'll continue this to January 2nd.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you. Is that better? 8:37. Just started. Right with it. All right, moving on. Site plan review and permit amendment modifications. Item number 10, we have nothing. Item number 11, time extensions, none. Item 12, bond releases or reductions. First up is SEP 2018-02, file number 15978, 160 Shelton Road, $2,500 full release, Sound the Trumpet Baptist Church. Mr. Vargas?
As you remember, the last time it was on, the owner was not here. And we wanted him to come because there's a unique situation in which there was an approval for renovations to the existing building to accommodate a church. they started the work, but they have since no longer are pursuing that, they're no longer his tenant. But there are pieces of the work that is in flux, and then there are other things with the landscaping that happened that are gone, but since he doesn't have them to do what they were supposed to do, we wanted to talk to him to
Okay.
see what we can deal with
Can
what's
you
out
just have
there.
your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is James Vargas. I'm the owner of Whitney Farms Golf Course and 160 Shelton Road that we're talking about now.
Mr. Vargas, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
I requested that you come only because if we release this bond, there were certain things that, as you know, were not completed as part of the previously approved project. The only hold we have over the previous applicant is this bond. So if we defer some of these items for the time being, it doesn't mean that they're not gonna have to be done. Someday they're gonna have to be done. So whatever you have next coming in, if you have a use where you have to come before us for either a special exception permit or site plan approval, these items will have to be done. So I just want you to be aware that by releasing this bond, did the church post the bond?
No, I
Oh, you
posted it.
posted the bond.
They didn't have the money to post it, I had to post it.
Okay, so
Should have been your first.
by releasing the bond, we're not saying, okay, you don't have to do these things. Someday you're gonna have to do them.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I should tell you that since they left, I've done a lot of work on the building. And maybe these things would offset some of the stuff we're gonna do. We repainted it, we put all new curbs in. The shrubs that were ripped out were mostly dead, and we reloomed it, resodded it. We took down all the dead trees in the front, so we've got it where it's looking good. And our tenant there is very happy with it. They had a cocktail party when they, a couple weeks after they moved in, and they had people from all over the country, and they thought it was beautiful, you know, so. We tried to get it polished up so it looks, you know, presentable for our golf course across the street too, because it was in bad shape there for a while. And there was a lighting issue, I know, with the church, and they did, but what I did is, we never had, for my office, we never had any really fancy lights along the way. Most of them were shot and they weren't working, so I put all new lights on the building. I put all motion detectors on the buildings. I have spotlights in the corners. I did all the front doors and the side doors, so there's good lighting there now at night, even though nobody's there. But if you drive up, the lights go on. If you go away, they go off, you know. So I don't think that's going to be offensive to any.
According to the plan that we approved though?
Excuse me?
Is that stuff all part of the?
No, that was stuff that I did just to get the building functional.
Okay. Those things should have been approved by the commission.
No, you didn't approve any of that. That's stuff that
Yeah,
I
I
did just
know.
to get everybody so to be safe and sound.
No, his point is, that's stuff that should have been approved by the commission.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand, when the church went in, they took all the lights off. And
Well, there is a plan for what lights were going to, supposed to be on there.
well, that's why they took them off, because they were gonna put new lights on, but then they,
Well, I know, but you should follow that plan. If not, you have to come and amend that plan. But it sounds like you kind of did something different altogether.
yeah, but what we did is we put the lights back in the original locations.
The lights that were there before.
Yeah, and we just made them, motion detectors, we made them the.
Yeah, but we don't know what they are. They may be fine,
Yeah,
but.
yeah, they
you
really
should
are
have-
pretty good,
You should have come to, you need an electrical permit for that as well.
yeah. To change light fixtures?
Well, if they're
Anything
just-
you change when you take the wires, well, if you just change the
If they're just,
fixture.
if they're
We just
changing
changed the fixtures,
Yeah,
I
just a
don't think we
fixture.
need a permit for that.
So he just put the fixtures back up that the church took down.
And I upgraded them by
Wow.
doing motion detectors and
But are
stuff
they
like that.
floodlights or are they floodlights or are they,
They're all motion.
well, yeah, motion just means they go
Yeah.
on and off until.
No, the new bulbs, what do you call,
LED?
yeah, they're all
But is it
LEDs.
downlit or is it a floodlight?
They're kind of, they're floodlights pointing down into the driveway,
Yeah, see, those aren't what would have been approved.
yeah.
But it might have
But
been
they,
what was
they
there.
work really well, though, I mean,
It might have been what was there originally.
exactly, that's what we did.
Maybe. Don't know, they took them down.
Doesn't matter now.
So
There's
anyways,
no parking striping, right? That hasn't happened yet?
No, I didn't do it because we only have 6 cars there. We have a tenant that has 4 people that work there, and it's just myself and usually I'm across the street at the golf course, and I have one bookkeeper, so there's so much extra parking there we have 6 cars there. And my bookkeeper only works from 9 to 1, and she goes home, now we're down to 5 cars, so. It's kind of like overkill for it at this point. Basically, it's the way it was, the way my dad and I had the building since 1978 or 80, you know?
Well, did you reoccupy the part that the church was supposed to be in?
No, that's empty.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's half the building. So when you get someone to go in there, it's.
Yeah, so
it's
if
not
you
gonna
get a
be full car in
tenant
there.
for the part of the building that the church had been renting, you have to come back to us, and these things will have to be done.
Okay, can I ask, I personally thought that some of the stuff was excessive that they made the church do. If I do get a tenant, can I come back with a revised plan?
Yes.
That's
But
probably.
you have to come back with a plan, don't just
Yeah.
do stuff.
No, I understand that. I just put the building back the way it was,
Yeah.
basically. But I get all that, but the plan that they had was really, very excessive. And that's one of the reasons why,
Well, it's based on the use and the occupancy, you know, and they were
Yeah.
proposing to have a lot of cars there
Yeah,
on Sundays.
exactly
so-
right.
You
So
know, it
we'll
was-
probably go to another low usage kind of deal. And so as long as I can come in and revise the plans, I'd be more than happy.
Well, the plan really was just fixing the handicap and a walkway here and the landscaping. That's all it really was. I mean,
All that green stuff is new.
That's what I said,
Yeah.
in the landscape, because you ripped out all the landscaping that was there.
Well, there was never any landscaping in the front. There was just 4 dead trees.
I don't wanna go back to that.
Yeah.
We had that one last year.
All right, I wanted to make sure that you are aware that by us releasing the bond that you posted for the church, doesn't mean that you're never gonna have to do anything on that property.
I understand that completely.
So when you get another tenant,
Yeah,
come back in with a,
not a problem, as
it's
long
not
as
even a
I,
revised site plan, come in with a new site
that's
plan
fine.
for that tenant.
Okay,
We'll rebond the job at that
Yeah.
time,
that works for me.
okay?
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Yes, sir.
Staff? Okay.
Just make
Okay.
that part of your release bond.
Pardon me?
Just make that part of the motion to release the bond.
Okay.
All right, I move to release the bond SCP 2018-02. With the provision that any future development will come back before the commission.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So you're right.
No, sir?
Call the roll.
Westland, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay,
Thanks. Sorry, thanks a lot.
thank you. All right, next up, SDP 2014-01, file number 101, and 13-3-SCP, file number 1520A, 406 Main Street, $2,500 full release.
This is the property, it's an old greenhouse, owned by Ray Ganem. It's next to the I think the Monument Store and across from Vazzi's. And to finish the work, but he's finished the work.
Which,
This is where,
oh, this is the one that used to be a funeral home years ago?
Isn't it an ice cream place?
maybe it was an ice cream place.
Ice cream
I think it might have been, because it's next to the Monument Store.
Yeah.
Used it for the
It's not occupied now.
No, the downstairs is empty, it's apartment upstairs.
It used to,
Right.
40 years ago, it was a
Yeah.
funeral home.
Yeah, then it was some.
How many?
ice cream place.
40?
Twisted Taste, I think was it.
That's how you,
Before your time.
that's how you remember
It's
40
a nice
years
house,
ago.
it's a nice looking building.
God bless you, dude.
Some of us have been around a little while.
Okay, I mean.
They had ice cream in there. More recently.
There was ice cream.
Yeah, there was for a short while.
There was a
then-
hairdresser in there.
Yeah, then it was Ginger Cafe was there for a little bit of a year. and then
There was
it went up to-
some sort of catering guy?
Yeah,
Oh,
they
yeah,
prepared
well,
meals.
Twist of
Taste,
Taste or
Twisted
whatever.
Taste.
His food's doing good. You go somewhere else though.
I would not eat his,
He was in Clock Tower too.
he gets in health violation.
Yeah, I think so.
So what did they have left to do there?
Well, he had some landscaping that died back and he put the wrong sizes in, so we had to supplement that. He had some curves that were broken up. He had to fix that. It took a while to get them out of it, and it really took a while to get his as-built. So, there really wasn't much there. It was just a little bit of fixing the parking lot, a little lighting, and some landscaping, that's all.
Right. Staff is
Yeah.
satisfied that everything's
Yeah.
done?
Yep,
Let's see,
I submitted a report.
Yeah.
Motion?
All right, I move to release the bond fully for DP 2014-01.
Second. I don't know, Ryan's been doing it all day.
Well, I figured
Now all of a sudden-
That's the second.
Rob could do it
Now all of
too.
a sudden he stops.
All right, any further discussion?
No.
Call the roll.
Westland, yes.
Mayini, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
Ryan, yes.
Bless
Oh,
you.
bless you.
Pending meeting minutes, November 7th, 2019. And we had present Porter, O'Reilly, Mayini, Condon, and Westland. Yeah, everybody was here.
Well, yeah,
No, I mean, we got 5 people.
we're good to go.
We're good.
Move to accept the Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes of November the 7th, 2019, as drafted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion, corrections, clarifications?
Page 2, wasn't Commissioner Manini a little more later than the 10 minutes? I think it was
No,
like
he was only
15,
10
16,
minutes
something like that.
late.
And the jokes keep coming. I don't even remember really being late that day.
You were late.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're walking in.
it was more like
Just so
7:03. I think we should adjust it to that. We'll go with
I think the recording secretary does a very good job of keeping track of things, so
She does a great job, and I want that in the meeting minutes for 2 weeks from now.
anything? Okay. We had a motion,
And a
Yes,
second.
second.
All right, and a second. Call the roll.
Westland, yes.
Mayini, yes.
Porter, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Okay. Pending application deliberations and determinations.
We omitted, unfortunately, from the agenda, an item that was a carryover from a previous meeting, then we had the cancellation. So if you do have an updated draft tonight, so if you first need to add that to the agenda, that to consider.
Do we need a motion to add?
Yeah,
it
you
to
need
the
a motion
agenda?
to add that item for
All right,
deliberation.
make a
and-
motion to add permit amended modification SCP 2016-12-A2 to the agenda for
Deliberation.
pending applications.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Permit amendment modification, SCP 2016-12-A2, file number 1582A, 154 Enterprise Drive. It was an application for a permit amendment modification from Eastern Land Management for 164 Enterprise LLC, the property owner. They wanted to amend their existing special exception permit. Following modifications affect the 154 Enterprise Drive lot only. Modify the trailer parking area on the north side of the building. Addition to fence walls to their salt storage structure, to revise the size of their storage racks, and revision to the conditional compliance date for installation of brine and fuel storage tanks. Vehicle storage and trailer parking area was previously approved parallel to the loading area on the north side of the building. The modification seeks the ability to maintain 3 21,000-gallon each closed-top tank trailers to support the operations of a tenant. They will be using them as holding tanks in between transferring full septic tank truckloads to a licensed disposal facility. That's basically it.
On this one, Ryan would have to sit out because Leon was on this one and he's gonna be recorded as being absent. So you can just go with the other four.
So Porter, O'Reilly, Mayini, and Westland. So the chair will entertain a motion.
Move to grant SCP 2016-12-A2 as drafted.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
No, sir.
Any questions? Anything?
No, sir.
Mike?
No.
Okay, call the roll.
Westland, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Porter, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
And Rosie will be out.
Nothing else, right? So,
No, that's it.
okay, regulation review amendment work session.
Which one did you? Monday?
Monday the 16th, a week from Monday.
Right.
I know, Mike, you said you can't make it. Leon responded he is available.
The 16th. I'm in.
Yeah, you got nothing there.
Okay, it's not like I really put anything in here, I just wanted to look at it.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, it's not that I don't value your input and participation in these things, but 3 of the 4 members can make it, so we'll schedule that for the 16th at 5:30 PM.
Not to be rude, but it has to be at 5:30?
What would work better for you?
6?
Well, see, Will stays after work.
5:30 it is.
I come straight here from work. 6 o'clock doesn't give me time to go home and have dinner.
Well, let me conform to you guys.
Thank you.
I'll stop by at 8 and see how you're doing.
Can we meet at 8 so we can get Michael here?
No, 5:30 it is. Okay, item number 16, correspondence, other received. I received a letter, which is actually a second letter, from a property owner on Timothy Hill Road who has concerns about what's going on at the 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive properties. Thanks, Scott.
Great job tonight.
This is an issue that the property right now is under a notice of violation from the inland wetlands. The person who wrote the letter is asking the Planning and Zoning Commission to take some measures against the property. This is an issue that the town Land Use Special Counsel is well aware of and is working on, and I am going to forward a copy of this letter to him for him to take further action. So I just wanted it to be on the record that we did receive the letter, and that so will town council, special counsel, not the town council, will be acting on it and taking the appropriate steps. Commission reports, the chairman reports, I have nothing else new. Any commissioners have anything to report?
No, sir.
Okay, just as I said at the beginning of the meeting, welcome to our new members. Staff?
Before Rick gives you his report, I just want to remind everybody that next Wednesday, the 11th, is the kickoff meeting for the POCD, and all members are expected to be there. And it's going to be at the Eller's Room in the library in the lower level. I'll probably send you a reminder in the email as well.
That's on the 11th?
On the
And that's
11th,
our kickoff meeting.
7
Yeah,
PM.
You want us there or you don't want us there?
We do.
Hey, you signed up for this, pal.
No, you want us there.
It wasn't a POCD meeting, it was a different thing.
So
$7
this is not going to be a work session, this is going to be a kickoff meeting. I expect it's going to be relatively short.
It's here at Town Hall?
No, it's at the library, the lower level meeting room.
Oh, at the library.
Yeah.
7 o'clock,
The
right?
7
commissioners
o'clock.
will meet the consultant, Bill, so, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the consultant will be there. We are, you know, advertising it to everyone in town. This is, we really want to get input and, you know, people in town who are interested in planning and zoning, and, you know, this is our master plan for the next 10 years, so we want public participation. I posted a notice about it on Facebook in some of the town groups. I know Barbara Farr has been posting information about it, so hopefully everyone will be able to make it. And this is going to be a process that's going to be going on for probably the next 10 to 12 months, where we are going to be having meetings and workshop sessions, we'll get more information from the consultant next Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, lower level of the library. Thanks, Will, I forgot to mention that. What else?
Town planners report, which you all have a copy before you. First item, ZBA agenda. The zoning board of appeals upheld the ZEO's cease and desist order for 268 Garden Road. Will was present with Joe Chapman. Did you want to say anything, Will?
No, it was cut and dry. I mean, they obviously realized the extent of the violation. If you're aware of what it is, if you're anywhere aware of Casella's work in town, he's for a long time been on Garden Road property. He lost his property to tax eviction, and then the property got sold, and it took the new owner about 1.5 years to evict him. And when he finally got evicted, he moved all his equipment down to his other property on Garden Road, which is a scenic road. And there's like 20 pieces of equipment, a couple Connex boxes, and he's claiming he was just starting to prepare to do work on his affordable housing project proposal that was approved through a settlement, which has not only expired, but also has been severed by half the property because the other half went to somebody else. The ZBA upheld the zoning officer. The legal notice is gonna be the next week, and then if he doesn't move the equipment, we have to go to court.
Was a ruling made at the hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
And just to remind the commissioners, when the zoning officer issues an order, that is an avenue the violator can go to ZBA to ask for a modification, a reversal, or the board can uphold it, which they did. They upheld it. Their next meeting is January 7th. That's their next calendar year. Nothing from Siding Council. The chairman just scheduled a new regulations subcommittee meeting on the 16th. Nothing new in zoning enforcement. The citation program, both the 485 Pepper Street and the 268 Garter Road, which we just talked about, they're going to reopen a citation hearing again. There were some issues that were not done correctly, so they're going to be scheduling that very soon.
Well, it was more than that. There was a piece of information that was discussed at the first hearing that relating to that old permit that I said. So we're bringing that into the record so the citation officer can also opine on that, because he's using that as a reason for why he was there.
And do we have a date for that hearing?
Not yet. We should have it, yeah. The hearing officer didn't get back to Joe yet, but I'm going to find out tomorrow. Because this has to be done right away.
And that's for a separate order. There's two different orders. So the one that the ZBA appointed, that one's going forward, that has its own track. This is a separate order. And there's a third one on the well, right?
Yeah.
Let's stay on top of these
Yeah.
hearings and, let's not let that linger.
Next item, anti-blight. The 685 Main Street, the old Circle Dog stand, there's equipment up there ready for the demolition, and then it left. So now we're trying to find out what is going on, because the demolition was ready to proceed. The good news is we have a new one, 7 Main Street. They took out the permits, and they're going to be ready to demolish the old residence there. So that's good. But staff is working on the 685 to find out what happened. It was ready to get demolished.
House in the back.
Planning matters, as the chairman just indicated, the kickoff is next Wednesday, the 11th, 7 o'clock in the library. No special meetings scheduled for the month of December, as noted. And we're ending the year on the last page with 2 single-family dwellings, new construction, and 1 rebuilt. And you can see that's down from last year. 9 last year and 2 rebuilds this year, 2 single-family and 1 rebuilt. And that concludes my report.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is that we are beginning budget season. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to deal with that or not, but, we usually do the commission's budget. You usually have between $4,000 or $5,000. We never ever spend any of that in the commission level, but it's there.
I need a raise.
Me too.
across the board.
That part of it, we're not allowed to play with in the budget.
Double everybody's salary on the commission.
$4,000, we could get coffee for every meeting then.
We used to at least get a pitcher of water with lemon slices.
Well, unfortunately, Harry,
The lemon slices are not in the budget.
Harry's
Not in the
no longer with
budget.
us. Well, he was.
The water's at the
maintenance guy,
fountain.
so he got her.
Anything else, anyone?
No, sir.
Nothing on the right, nothing on the left, staff, everybody's good?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.